Hi, everybody. I'm going to just get live on Instagram and then we can get going with this Q&A from Crushing Doubt. Really looking forward to talking with you all. As always, I wish there wasn't a lag time, but there is a little bit of one. Thankfully, there are far bigger problems. Okay, we've got things going. Welcome to Crushing Doubt's Q&A. It has been every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I wanted to make an announcement about that. I'm actually going to be shifting the time of this Q&A, and I also apologize. I was away the last 2 weeks. Really, it's not that I'm apologizing for being away. It's more that we need to get a better delivery system to you so that you know when I'm going to be out. So we're going to work on that as well. I will keep you posted on all of that. But this time for the Q&A is going to shift. We're going to shift to 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. It'll still be on Thursdays. I'll be here most weeks. I'm going to get a good delivery system to let you know when I'm out, but did want to let you guys know about that change. There are various reasons that's happening. In fact, stay tuned because there's some other changes coming that I will mention in the newsletter in the coming week or two. All right. In any case, it is great to be here with you. I missed you all, and really looking forward to doing this work in the Q&A. So let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Of course, I'm here to talk about mind-body issues. So that is any symptom that's happening in the body for reasons of whatever's going on in the mind, thinking, feeling, all kinds of different things. Whatever's going on in your brain can change what happens throughout your body. Anything that the body can do, the mind can use for a symptom. And the reason I do this, of course, is that I had 8 years of chronic everyday back pain myself from the years, when was that? 2003 to 2011. And I had no sense that I was going to get better. I didn't know how. And then I discovered the works of Dr. John Sarno. And his books and his ideas about these things changed my life. It made me understand what was happening. It gave me hope that I could get better. And then at the same time, I still had a lot of questions. I didn't understand certain things, and that's not Sarno's fault, but there were just things that I really still wanted to know to get complete certainty. Sarno, in fact, said you have to accept the diagnosis to get better. And I was accepting the diagnosis in large measure, but I knew that I could accept it more fully if I knew certain things. So that's why I do this Q&A, because I did get the answers. I had to seek them out. I had to read books. I had to talk to different people. I had to puzzle it out for myself. And all of my answers you can find in my book, by the way, which is Crushing Doubt, which you can get on Amazon. If you haven't checked it out, I highly encourage it. It's the most comprehensive view of my system for getting better from mind-body symptoms you can find anywhere. I think it's the most comprehensive system you can find anywhere anyway. And I've continued to get great feedback on it. It's really exciting to share it with you all and have those conversations. So we're going to talk Q&A. You guys are going to ask all the questions that you have. I'm going to provide answers. And I want to encourage you, go for answers that are to your full satisfaction. So if I answer a question and you're still not quite sure, ask a follow-up. That's totally fine. All right. We're going to get into that. At some point, I'm going to pause and talk about the resources available on my website, other ways to get your questions answered by me, other ways to work with me, etc. Okay. But the idea here is mind-body symptoms change when your mind changes. And that means you need new information. So I'm here to give you new information. When I answer these questions, I'm going to do them within my system's framework. My system is called the column system. It got its name from dividing a sheet of paper into 3 columns, which identify the 3 different parts of what goes on in your brain and how it affects mind-body experience. And those 3 parts are essentially feeling, thinking, and your relationship with yourself. Feeling is correlated to what I call the emotions column. It is for the acute onset and upset onset and uptick in symptoms. And the doubt column is what correlates to thinking. That corresponds to seemingly chronic symptoms. And then there is the power column, which relates to your relationship with yourself, where the symptoms are sometimes trying to communicate something important to you. So when I answer these questions, I'm going to be analyzing them from a columns perspective and hopefully giving some useful tips and instruction on how you can use that system. All right, let me say hi to a couple of people, then we'll get into the questions. Okay, Luann Davison, sorry. Thank you for joining us on Instagram. Laura Brown, good to see you here as well. And Maria Llewellyn, thank you for joining us on Instagram. Then we've got some people who say hi on YouTube. Kasim, good to see you. He says, hi, Dan and everyone. Ani Crowfoot, good to see you, Ani. Laura, I see you have a question. I'll get to that shortly. Laurie says, hi, Dan and everyone. Good to see you, Laurie. Susan Serino says, hi, Dan and Crushing Out community. Susan, great to see you. Oh, she says Crushing Out family, actually, which is even closer. Love it, Susan. Thank you. Then Karen Isaacs is here. Good to see you, Karen. Hi, all. Missed the last couple of Q&As. Actually, I missed the last couple of Q&As, so I have been out for 2 straight Thursdays. I'm back now, and I'm here until the end of July. I will let you know when those dates are going to, when there's going to be some times when I will be out. Debbie A., thanks for joining us. I believe you are joining all the way from England, and I know you're up late, so thank you for joining us. She says, hi, Dan and everyone. Dorisa, hi, Dan and Crushing Out community. Good to see you, Dorisa. All right. Let's get to some questions, and then we'll continue to talk about how I can help. All right. Laura says, I've had a terrible uptick in my symptoms since I had some very intense interaction with my narcissist husband. All right. I'm sorry about that. Laura, you do have another piece of information here that I'm going to need to help you answer your question. Just don't know how to deal with the verbal/emotional abuse, but still have boundaries and relieve my mind-body symptoms. Okay. So I'm going to answer Laura's question. This is for Laura, but it's really for everyone. I want to encourage you. Every single conversation should further your understanding about mind-body issues and how you can think about these things. So Laura, when I answer this question, this is just my first answer. And I want you to follow up on it as needed. If you're like, wait a minute, I need to know how to do what you said or what you meant by this, follow up with questions. All right. But here's what I'd say first. One thing, well, let me say this before anything. In my groups where you come on Zoom calls, we could have a conversation about this. And it would be different than this Q&A because, Laura, you would say certain things. I'd ask you questions. I'd be like, okay, well, tell me what's going on. How is he verbally and emotionally abusive? What goes on inside of you? What do you end up saying to yourself? There's lots of questions that I have that would illuminate my information and then give me better answers for you. But I don't have that here, so we'll do follow-up as needed. But if you're looking to get, deeper interactions with me, you can go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.com, and join my group membership. I do have different kinds of groups. There's the general groups where you can come to see me multiple times a week. There's also specific groups that are capped, and those cost more, but that allows you to get even more in-depth access to me. So if you're interested in that, you can always email me, dan@crushingdoubt.com. Okay. But I'm going to try to answer your question here, Laura. What I first would want to know is, what does happen inside you? Because ultimately there's the stress from the outside, but there's also the stress from what goes on inside in response. And I'm well familiar with this, though I did not feel that there was any difference when I was experiencing it growing up or when I was younger or even just 10 years ago. I couldn't tell the difference because it just felt like any danger from the outside became danger from the inside. There was no use teasing it apart. But the reason I'm saying this, Laura, is that if you can learn to recognize there's actually 2 dangers. There's the danger from the outside, and then there's the danger from the inside. That's the most key thing you can do to get relief from your symptoms, put the boundaries in place, and be able to deal with the abuse. Boundaries, of course, are part of how you'll deal with the abuse. But let's say he says something horrible about you, and then you could go in 2 different directions. You might attack yourself and say, well, maybe he's right. Or you might say, wow, he is nuts. I'm not listening to him at all. And I'm aligned with me, and I know why he's doing this. And it's, the key is certainty, Laura. So I talk about doubt. Doubt is key to bringing down any symptom that is seemingly chronic, a mind-body symptom. But it is also key to bringing down the chronicity or the seeming chronicity of the same emotional experience again and again and again. When you're certain about your reality, that's when you can withstand almost any verbal or emotional abuse because it won't affect you the same way. Now, I'm not saying that's easy, Laura. I get it. It was extremely hard for me to do at first. But once I learned how to do it, it was so freeing because then I didn't have to control the environment. I didn't have to watch what I did. I didn't have to walk on eggshells is what they call it. There's a book called Walking on Eggshells about narcissism, living with narcissism. And I don't have to do that anymore because I'm safe with me. And I want to encourage you, Laura, that's going to make you safer than anything you could possibly imagine. However, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. So I want you, what I think does matter in that it can be helpful, but what you think is what's going to matter in terms of what your mind ends up doing with the information. So let's follow up as needed. Okay. All right. Karen Isaac says, not a question, observations. I'm getting better at zipping it regarding pushing this on my husband. She puts pushing in quotes, but infuriating. He got compression socks, supplements, finally agreed to listen to Sarno books. His leg pain lessened. Duh. Love that, Karen. He said, vitamins, blah, blah. I'm not worried about it, but if he doesn't embrace this, I worry pain will overtake him. All right. Multiple things I could say in response, Karen. I'll give you my first response, and then let's see what you think. So one of the things that I think can help in situations like this, which a lot of mind-body sufferers experience, is the wish to have people around them get this, especially people they're living with, because those people are often feeding our doubts or standing in the way of our full belief or standing in the way of our power as they're talking about all this nonsense, which truly it is. I'm not saying it to be insulting, but it's really true. And so, Karen, I get why you would wish for that. Absolutely. But the number one thing that I thought of as I was reading this is, strangely, pain and suffering in this way is a bit of an ally, because usually what happens is people just get sick of it. They can't take it anymore. And they start to say, fine, what is it? I remember actually my brother, he was very skeptical of these ideas for a long time. And then he developed back pain and he kept being skeptical about it. And then it just dragged on and on and on. And he eventually really got sick of it. And he came to me and he said, okay, fine. Just tell me, what is it? And by the way, that's pretty much how I read the first Sarno book I read. I was like, I got nothing to lose. I don't care anymore. But I resisted reading it for 11 months, Karen. I didn't read it right away. I got the book. It sat on my shelf. Eventually, pain and suffering, we get sick of it. And then we start to move in the direction of getting the help we need. So I think time is on your side. He's never going to be stuck with it, because if he's stuck with it enough, you could also even voice to him, hey, I'm really frustrated with you. I have the answer and you don't believe me. Stop shutting me out. Stop believing that you know better than me. You don't. I've known better than you the whole time. Now, we may have to talk, Karen, about specifically how do you find your way in there with your specific husband and that relationship. But part of the power column is to make adjustments in what's going on in your life. And if we can make certain adjustments, we can live more powerfully and not be stuck with this. So lots of things I could say about it. I'll start with that, Karen. Let's do some follow-up as needed, okay? Let me say hi to a couple of people. Among the Wolves, good to see you back here. Rita, thank you for joining us here. And Lynn Archer Nestor, thank you for joining us on Instagram as well. Please do let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm not seeing any on Instagram yet, but I'm sure they'll come rolling in. All right. Susan Serino says, Dan, I have a problem getting to the unconscious emotions. They must be unconscious, especially since I have the worst symptoms while sleeping. All right. No. Actually, hold on. Let's see. How do I accept that I had shoulder replacement? Okay, that's a separate question, Susan. I'm going to get back to that. Let's talk about this unconscious emotions, how to access them. And I just want to say, I really like your observation. They must be unconscious, especially since I have the worst symptoms while sleeping. This is not atypical. Although I do want to say this. If you're sitting out there listening and you're like, wait, that's not what my symptoms are like. He must be helping other kinds of people. Not true. In my system, I help all kinds of mind-body sufferers. I help people who have symptoms that never move at all. I help people with symptoms that come and go. I help people with symptoms that are at night when they're unconscious. I help people with symptoms when their sleep is fine, but it's their waking days that are the hard part. It comes in all different patterns. One of the keys to the columns is they can make sense of your moments. I have an overarching theme that I say to people, a rule. You make sense and your symptoms make sense. So, Susan, I hear that in your approach, in what you're asking. You know that this makes sense somehow. And I love this, because what it means is we've done enough of the doubt work to then go ahead and do the emotional work. There is a flow to my columns work. It's bring down the doubt, learn about emotions, flow into power. Susan, we worked on bringing down doubt enough for you to really start wondering about these emotions, and I hear you doing it. And so what happens when doubt is down low enough is you can start to observe what symptoms are doing, because they start to do other things. When you bring down doubt enough, it breaks up those seemingly chronic symptoms, and you start to see, actually, there's patterns to this. When doubt is super high, there's no pattern. It just is what it is. And then people are like, how am I going to get out of it? I can't see a pattern. By bringing down doubt. when you're in Susan's position, the doubt's down low enough, we can start to see patterns. One of the patterns you're seeing, Susan, is this happens at night when you're sleeping. So yes, it does relate to unconscious emotions. Now, how do we get to unconscious emotions? To me, fortunately, we have the symptoms. Now, of course, it sucks to have the symptoms, but at the same time, fortunately, they're information. So one thing that I like to say is that dreams are something that you can access unconscious information about. It's your brain, what it's doing when you are literally unconscious. But the problem with it is it's masked. It comes in weird forms. It's easy to forget. It's not said straight out. Symptoms are very, very clear, and they happen in waking life. Even for you, Susan, because they wake you up from sleep, and there you are having them. So what we need to do is get good at understanding how the unconscious works and how to read it. One of the things that can help is the timing of symptoms is what matters. So you're having some kind of feeling right then and there, because this is an emotions column event. It's an onset or an uptick. You're having the feeling right then and there. The question is, well, what is it and where to look? So the timing tells you what kind of things to look at. What you can do when you go to sleep and then you wake up with symptoms is look back at the previous day. It's there. The information's there. Each night, your brain resets, and then it starts a whole new day, and it starts building up other things that it needs to work on. And those are the things that are going to get worked on the following night. So, Susan, go back to the previous day. Ask yourself what happened. Who were the important people I talked to? What kind of conversations did I have? What were the important events? Are there anniversaries that came up in that date? What was the day like? What was my mood like? It's not as hard as people think, actually, to discover unconscious emotion. It sounds like it is because we're not aware of it. But what happens is we have to learn to look for the clues. And that's the step we're on now, Susan, is to start looking for those clues and understanding how do we discover it, which is, you asked a perfect question. I have a problem getting to the unconscious emotions. How do I do it? What we need to do is practice. How do you see the signs of unconscious emotions? Okay, let's do follow-up as needed. That's my first answer, and we'll go from there. All right. Kasim said, I had a bump on the head at work. I tried to lower the symptoms, but it took over. And the next day, I took my cabin to the vet. It must be cat. Into the vet. Sorry about that. And you know that story. I do. Symptoms are all there. Hazy vision, nausea. Let's see what you say. What role does the central nervous system play in the symptoms uptick, e.g. the bump on the head, knowing it's not harming me? Okay, so I'm going to answer this, and this is my first answer, Kasim, and then let's go from there. So one thing is this. You and I have worked together enough that this will be familiar. But when something happens, especially in a part of the body that feels very vulnerable, because you've had symptoms there, or maybe your main symptom is there, which in this case, it has been that. It's just scary. It's a doubt trigger. So when you bumped your head, let me go back to what you said here. When you bumped your head, you had what I would say is a doubt trigger. Now, you tried to lower the symptoms, but it took over. The way that I think about that from a columns perspective is you did a great job going straight to the doubt column. I'm sure you were working on it. You were like, this is a doubt trigger. Nope, I've done this before. I've controlled these symptoms before. When you're doing the doubt work, but it still takes over, what it means is that either the doubt trigger was stronger than usual, or there is an emotional experience that is opening, or a power dip, actually, but something in the emotional field, because the emotions and power column are both emotional columns. I'll explain that in a second. It's the combination of a strong emotional experience and the doubt that tends to make symptoms take over, even when you're fighting the doubt trigger. When you're just fighting a doubt trigger and your emotions are pretty even, it's going to be a lot easier. So in this case, you had both. You had something going on in the emotional field, and then also a doubt trigger. And that's why the symptoms went up. Now, if you start thinking about that first of all could lower your doubt because it's making sense. And then we could get to what was the emotion. What was the emotion that made this spike? Now, I'll back up for a sec because I want to talk about the emotions and power column and why they are both emotional columns. The emotions column is where we go to discover emotions, to get awareness. And that can take away acute onsets and upticks in symptoms. But sometimes even when we get that awareness, those symptoms don't go away. And that means we need to make an adjustment in our emotional lives. And that's what happens in the power column. So Kasim, bottom line, you want to look at the emotions. So when you say what role does the central nervous system play in the symptoms uptick? In your case, not that much. And I actually mean that as good news, because what it means is doubt is actually getting you to be convinced, oh, maybe my central nervous system is just too revved up and it's very easily activated. That's not true. That's not what's going on for you. That does go on for some people. That's what I call a neuroplastic feedback loop, when the central nervous system is so revved up from a very traumatic experience, usually driven by emotional experience and a physical event that was scary. And that can get the central nervous system very, very sensitized. The good news is this: I don't think that's what's going on with you. I think what's going on with you is doubt has been raging at various points, though we've gotten it more under control, but it's still pretty strong at times. And also, in your emotional experience, you're feeling a lot of lack of safety. So again, the emotions column is where we gain awareness about the emotions. The power column is where we make adjustments about the emotions, but I don't think you feel safe in the emotional world. And this is the physical is mirroring that. Okay. So, it's not harming you, but I want you to start thinking emotionally about it. Kasim, let me know if that makes sense to you. All right. Laura said, what would be best group to pick if you're a beginner like me, Mondays or Wednesdays? I'm confused about which one to pick. Okay, Laura, I have good news for you, and I guess this will be a sort of announcement of sorts. Even for the group members that are in group, I again rethought something, because I'm always thinking, what do these group members actually need? What's going to make for the best setup? And what I decided is I'm actually going to make another group. So there's actually going to be now a Monday group and 2 Wednesday groups. And I'm going to split them into different times. And here's the other piece of good news. If you join my membership group, it is only $100 to join, and you can come to all 3. You can come to any of them you want in any combination. So that's what the new rules are going to be. I just want ways to help more people, and this will give you more options. By the way, one of those new options is going to be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. And I wanted to do that because we've got to give people around the world different times. I made one of the groups a time that can work in Australia. I made one of the times a group that can work for people after work on the East Coast. I made another that can work for the Pacific time, the West Coast, in the mornings. I made a couple times that can work for Europe. So I'm working to get a setup that works for everybody. Laura, what I would say for you is, if you're okay with it, don't worry about it, because if you sign up, one of those groups should work. If for some reason it doesn't, I can refund your money. It wouldn't be a problem at all. So I would say go ahead and sign up and come to any of them. All right. Now, for existing group members, if you got questions about that, it's probably a bit of a surprise, but hopefully a good one, because it's just going to open up more options for you and allow you to do more work with me. Okay. So, Laura, I hope that answered your question. Please do let me know, anybody, if you have questions about that. I was going to wait until next week to announce it, but there's the question. So I always answer questions. All right. Nox Flamma, thank you for joining us here. And Jana MSK1, thank you for joining us here as well. All right. Among the Wolves says, hello, I hope you're well, Dan. Thank you. I am, and I appreciate that. I'm wondering if a symptom can be from a lack of living in my power over a prolonged period rather than a specific emotion. So the answer to that is yes, certainly in a general way of thinking about it. I would need to know more about the details to tell you why that applies and how it applies, but I'm going to go with a couple of, I guess they're sort of assumptions. You can push back and let me know if I'm missing information. Well, let me just give you information and see what you think about this. An emotions column symptom, it comes from something specific. But the way that looks is that there's a sudden onset or uptick in symptoms. And often they can be quite severe, not always. Like a sneeze is an onset or an uptick in a symptom. It's very mild, but it can go all the way up to like nausea and, serious illness. But that would come on suddenly, and it would come and go more. So when I look at the columns, when I look at any symptom through the column system, I'm trying to analyze, well, what's what here? If your symptom is pretty much always there and it's not budging, that's actually something where I'd look at the doubt. What's standing in the way of getting better? And by the way, sometimes that doubt can be about power. It can be about the doubt that you can become powerful and do what you need to do. Then there's also what I call symptom plateaus, where you've gotten better, but the symptoms just kind of stuck. That's usually an indication of a power column symptom, where the symptom is trying to communicate something important to you. So that's just some information for you to kind of apply, but it definitely can be that a lack of power all by itself, independent of a specific emotion, can cause a symptom, especially if it's over a prolonged period. It's when it's really acute. That's when you know it's an emotions column event. This does sound like, yeah, very likely to be power. And by the way, that's another thing that I work on is the power column. I not only have these groups for the column system in general, I also have a power column group. It's specific to that. So if you feel that your doubt is nice and low and you want to work on living in power exclusively, I would contact me about that. It's dan@crushingdoubt.com. Might be a great group for you. Okay, that's a capped group, a set number of people, and we work specifically on power. So I'm happy to talk with you about that. All right. Nox Flamma says, is a chronic cough ever TMS or mind body? Absolutely. It's very common, actually. My doctor didn't bat an eye when I told her, but this cough sucks. I feel it's psychogenic. The chances are very high that it is. And one of the reasons I say that is that if you're a mind body sufferer and you're having symptoms a lot, most of your symptoms tend to be mind body. So I would be utterly shocked if this isn't psychogenic or mind body or TMS or whatever terminology we want to call it. I think it's mind body. And I've treated people with chronic coughs. I've had a chronic cough at various points, and we can get all of these things under control. All right. Nox Flamma, follow up as needed. Okay. Among the Wolves says, that's very helpful. Thank you. Look forward to joining your groups. Thank you for the extra times. That is awesome. Cannot wait to work with you. And, I'm really excited to be offering times that can work for people. Well, I keep tweaking things. My whole rule of thumb is, what would I have wanted as a sufferer? What did I need? This is part of what I need. So I'm just going to keep giving it to you. Okay. All right. Susan Serino says, how do I accept that I had shoulder replacement surgery and stop fearing using my shoulder normally? All right. A couple of things to answer that, Susan. One, and I know Susan well, so I have some details about this, but here's what I'd say. I know that you're worried that because there is hardware in your shoulder instead of bone, that it wouldn't heal the way bone would. But the thing is, it's really not very different. And in fact, it won't need to heal in the way that a bone usually would. Like, you can get a bone bruise, but you're not going to get a metal bruise. So that replacement surgery should have made your shoulder even stronger. Now, I understand that you are, you wish you hadn't done the surgery in certain ways because you've figured out it is mind body, but you're going to stop fearing using the shoulder when you accept the diagnosis fully. When you really think, you know what, this really is all mind body. And by the way, that's part of what we work on in the groups is we go over and over these facts and we look at them until you're like, this really does behave like it's mind body. It does not behave like it's structural at all. It's only when doubt is super high that it seems to behave in the way that it's structural. And that's not what's happening for you, Susan. You're having symptoms that are changing all the time. You're having night symptoms. Guess what? A structural issue doesn't just come to you at night. And you know this. So what we need to do is we need to keep hammering away at the doubt. And then, most importantly for you and where you are in your process, is to look at the emotions that you don't want to see, because otherwise the doubt keeps trying to pull you away from working on that emotional experience. Okay. Karen Isaac says, want therapy session for couples as it relates to this. I totally get it. And I do have, I have options for couples counseling. I'm very well connected in the therapy community, actually, especially in New York, because I lived there for 15 years. So Karen, if you want a recommendation, happy to give it. I'm even thinking about resources for people who are dealing with somebody in a couple situation where they're just bringing up their doubt or causing various problems, or tensions because of it. Okay. Kim Flanagan, thanks for joining us on Instagram. Good to see you here. All right. Maria Llewellyn says, I've been dreading this family vacation, even though part of me wanted to look forward to it. Now that we're here, my symptoms have really ramped up. back pain, knee pain, leg cramps, and a kind of shakiness that's hard to explain. It feels like that's a physical manifestation of what you're experiencing as the emotional side of things. I realize that being around the kids 24/7 is probably a major trigger for me. But what's confusing is that the symptoms are not budging. Is this mind body? This is definitely mind body. Definitely mind body. Now, why are the symptoms not budging? Let's think about the column system and what it means. It means that doubt is high. And let's talk about what doubt is. Doubt comes in 4 different forms: fear, confusion, lack of certainty, and unanswered questions. And I went in order of how strong the doubt is. Fear is the strongest doubt. It's just, it'll mess with your brain so much you can barely even think. If I had to guess, I think you're having a lot of fear. And that's why the symptoms are higher, and that's why they're not budging right now. What I would do with you if I were, let's say I was working with you in group, we would have a conversation about how do you bring down the fear? How can you think differently to make sure that you feel safe? And I was thinking about, where was that? There was a question that I answered before. It was about to Laura about emotional abuse and the lack of safety from the outside versus the inside. Maria, we could get the inside feeling of a lack of safety under control, and those symptoms would start to come down, especially if we got doubt down. If we don't do either, it can become problematic. But this is mind body for sure. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. You've been dreading this vacation, and then the symptoms go up. That cannot be an accident. You make sense, and your symptoms make sense. The timing is perfect. There is 0% chance this is anything but mind body. Now, I hope that's helpful, but let's do a follow-up, okay? All right. Karen Isaac says, wow, about group options, so generous. I'll be back. Loved it for 2 years. Also enjoying break to practice. Enjoy my summer, but group is amazing. Thank you for the shout out, Karen. So yeah, there will be 3 options for you. You can come to any of them. And I look forward to working with you, but you'll have, enjoy your summer off, and you can come to the Q&As and we'll hang out together here. Okay. And then Kasim said, wow, shut the front door. So it's $100 to go to all 3 sessions. Yes, it's actually true. And I'm excited about that because, what this does is it opens up space. I even decided, I was like, you know what? The groups also need to be longer. So this sounds kind of funny because I'm offering it for cheaper and for longer, but ultimately it's going to be better for everyone, including myself, because when the sessions are longer, I'm not so pressured to get everybody answers. I can take my time. I can sit with you and we can go over all these things. And then of course it's more cost effective for you. And then if it's more cost effective, more people come in, I help more people. It's better for everybody. So yes, that is true, Kasim. And I'm, excited to keep working with you, and this will make it all the easier. Amir, thank you for joining us here on Instagram. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, Lori says we're gonna finish up shortly, but starting my day is still really challenging. My life feels very limited. At this time, still, I feel alone, and the symptoms begin soon after. I'd like to be more in my power. Suggestion. All right. So as always, this is an answer for Lori, but it's really for everyone. Here's the way to think about it from a column's perspective, Lori. I think you made a very key observation here, but I want to highlight it. You start to feel alone and the symptoms begin soon after. That is not an accident, right? And I know you know this at some level, but I want to establish it more fully. Because doubt can easily just be like, oh, maybe the symptoms were there and I didn't really notice. Or maybe it just takes time for them to ramp up. No, it happened. It's an onset or an uptick. And it comes from you were feeling alone and you were feeling not safe in being alone. So what we need to do, there's a couple things. I know you say I'd like to be more in my power, and that's ultimately where things are going to flow because we bring down doubt, we learn about emotions, we flow into power. But the first thing we need to do is to help you bring down the fear and the sense of danger about aloneness. And one way we can do that is to get you talking to yourself differently. Self-talk is a big part of mind-body work. What you can tell yourself is, yeah, I feel lonely and it really sucks, but I have a goal here. And my goal is that I'm not going to be this alone. I'm going to eliminate the symptoms. I'm working on the columns. I've got Dan's help. I'm going to be able to do this. And then I'm going to be able to function better and be able to interact with people. So I'm not doomed to be alone. I can tolerate this temporary aloneness because it's not permanent. Now, of course, You're going to have doubt that says, well, I think it is permanent and I don't think I can do this. That's just doubt pushing back. But the reality is you're not doomed to being alone. In fact, this will be really interesting, Lori. I think that your symptoms are pushing for the communication of getting you to understand what is happening. And if they can get you to understand what's happening, they're going to help you understand how to connect in a way that is more authentically you. Just recently, you went to an event with a coach, I think, in the mind body field, and you told people about your struggle, and there was a sense of community there, and your symptoms, like the eyes being closed and the facial tension, it eased. So it actually works in reverse. You're thinking the symptoms have to go away before I can get what I need. It's actually the opposite. You got to get what you need to make the symptoms go away. And in a sense, that really is true. There's some of both. I know what you mean, but I can get your symptoms down so that you can have more access to things. And I also can help you bring the symptoms down by getting more access to things. Okay, now there may be some more questions rolling in a second, but before we wrap up for today, I again just want to talk about the various resources to get you help. So one is, if the most comprehensive and cost-effective way to get help from me really is my book, or coming here to this Q&A. But the book is even better than this Q&A because this Q&A is limited to whatever questions get answered, and it's limited to the time. Now, you can watch them again and again, and that's helpful, and I'm glad I'm doing this. But the book tells you everything. It tells you everything that you could possibly need to know. Then there may be conversations that need to flow from that, because you may have some questions to follow up, or what did he mean by this? Or why did he say this? Or why did he not say this? Come talk to me in group from the book. But the book is available on Amazon. And I want to encourage people, if you got help from the book, or if you haven't done it yet, please, please, please leave a review on Amazon. A positive review, obviously, assuming that it was, a book that you found helpful. Because if you do that, what happens is, people are trying to decide. They have limited time and limited resources, and they need to know which direction to go. If they see that this book did the trick for me, and you can even talk about why, that makes more people go in that direction. I'm not saying this to sell books. I'm saying this to get people the right information, and I think my book is the right information. So you can buy the book on Amazon. You can also go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.com. And there you will find a number of different resources. One is my membership group is now $100 to go to any 3 meetings you want every week. I'll be announcing the new times soon. And, and these membership meetings, they'll go as long as they need to go. I'm going to answer your questions. And I don't mean, indefinitely, but I'm going to let them go a lot longer than they had gone before, if I need to, because I need to get you guys answers to your questions. So, they could be up to 2 hours long. And those membership groups, by the way, they are recorded. And on top of it, you get access to my community site where you can ask written questions in between sessions, and I answer them. So you're getting a lot of support there. You're also going to be getting, if you join that membership group, or really any of the groups that I have, you'll also get access to a resource page, which I'm building. And that is about, let's say that you are looking for resources or articles about migraines or arthritis. All of those articles and all of those resources are going to be right there. Let's say you're looking for help for an adolescent and somebody in the mind body field who works with that. I'm going to have those resources all on the resource page. It's going to be coming in a couple months, but there's a lot of stuff there, and it's just $100 to have access to it. So to the resources, to the community website, and to ask questions, and all 3 groups. So if those groups run for 2 hours and there are 3 of them, you get 6 hours with me a week. You get 24 hours with me a month for $100. So it's also a way for us to build community and be together. We learn from each other and we talk about wins. So it's a huge way to get the support you need. Now, there is one other resource I want to talk about on my website, which is the seminars. The seminars are another way. If you want to get the initial information, they're a very curated version of the book. And so, some people, once they've read a book, it takes a long time to read a book sometimes, and maybe they haven't soaked it up enough, or maybe they don't do well with reading and they want to see it visually. These seminars are 8 sessions that take you through all of mind body experience. They talk about the mind body field and why one person says this, one person says this. How do you make it make sense all together? The real answer is that we are moment to moment beings. We're not always the same. So no answer is always going to work. But what I can do is show you in the columns why one answer works here and one answer works here and one answer works then and another answer works then. And the seminars are really, really great for that. So I will continue to bring you everything that I can to get you what you need to get better. Solitary Daughter, thank you for joining us here. I'm sorry it's towards the end, but I will be back here again next week. Let me give a little reminder, though. We are shifting Thursdays, these Q&As, to 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. There are various scheduling things, especially with moving these other groups around, that I needed to move this one. So I will be back next Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm working on a way to get you guys information about when I'll be out. I'll try to announce that in my newsletters, which come out on Fridays. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter, that's a great way to be informed about all of these things. You can find that on my website on the front page. There's a link for newsletter at the top, and there's also a link at the bottom to sign up. So many ways to help you, and I'll keep it coming, guys. Knox Flamma said, I missed your answer to psychogenic cough, so I'm going to answer it again. Yes, it's very likely that is mind body, psychogenic, TMS, whatever we want to call it. It's very, very common to have a persistent cough for mind body reasons. So we can talk more about the details. If you want to get the details of my earlier answer, go back and watch the live again. It's somewhere towards the middle when I answered that. But I can pretty much guarantee you, yes, it's mind body. Especially since you've had a doctor look at you, I'm not worried about it at all. If you ever are worried, sure, go to a doctor, but I say put on your doubt armor, because they're going to say a bunch of stuff that actually is not going to be entirely correct. We need to listen to them, especially about life and death stuff. That's key. The doctors know what they're talking about there. A good mind body doctor like Howard Schumacher or John Strax or David Schechter or Dave Clark, they're going to know what they're talking about much more than these other doctors. So try to rely on them especially. But I'm pretty well versed in understanding what tends to be mind body versus not. Any symptom can be mind body, any symptom. And this certainly sounds like it is. Okay. Hope that's helpful. Guys, it has been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next week. We'll keep it up. I'm here through it's the last week of July will be a week that I'm out, and then I think the first week of August, but I'm here otherwise. So keep the questions coming. And I really want to encourage you guys, sign up for my groups. I think it's a great time for us to have more expansive time to just talk things through more deeply than what we get to do here. Okay. Knox Flamma says, thank you, Dan. I'm about to go in with this advice. Great. Deep thanks. My pleasure. Luann Davison says, thank you. It is my pleasure, Luann. Just so great working with you guys. All right. We will keep it up. I'll see you next week.